What would cinema look like today if it wasn't for the imagination of the earliest filmmakers? To create structure and character in a medium that had never existed before, and to rise the novelty of moving images to something that could really move an audience. This takes the work of a true artist. Why is Charlie Chaplin still recognisable, relevant and important today? It's been over 100 years since Chaplin's first appearance on the big screen, and in 1914 first embodied the character of the Tramp. The first cinema icon. The first real recognisable star. And while the Tramp was created out of Chaplin's acting instincts, learnt mostly from his mother and his time on stage, he wouldn't be fully realised until his feature films, where Charlie took full creative control. Now at first glance the Tramp character looks the same in all films, but as a character he evolved over a series of short films, starting at Keystone Pictures. Now as an actor, writer, composer and director, Chaplin explores the possibility of what could be done with film as a medium. His introduction to cinema was a major turning point, evolving from novelty, slapstick, chase sequences to something very human and sentimental. His films were called comedies with heart, devoted to character and human interaction. Chaplin first introduced, number one, the principle of the slowdown. A quiet moment away from the usual relentless, frenzied motion and action towards the exploration of a character's inner world. Number two, this led to tonal variation, and number three, a level of psychological nuance that had never been seen before. Mixing entertainment with emotion, allowing an audience to connect with the figure on screen like never before. So what makes his feature film stand above the rest of his work? Not that the jokes or chase sequences were superior, but the emotional complexity, density and expression of character really connected with the hearts of moviegoers. Modern Times is undoubtedly the peak of the Tramp character, strangely coming out in 1936, almost 10 years after the introduction of the talkies, and focusing on the then current state of the economic depression, which was said to surely fail. Modern Times, however, acted as almost a love letter to the films of the silent era, with many situations and moments echoing back to Chaplin's early films. And since his work from 1914 onward had made the Tramp a household name, it acted as a sense of nostalgia for the audience. Chaplin also shows maturity in his writing of the female gamin character. Instead of being a passive beauty or damsel in distress, Paulette Goddard's character is almost the Tramp's equal, an optimist and resilient. Now here's my favourite scene. It speaks to the subject matter of injustice present in all of Chaplin's work, and it comes in the middle of the film's structure. Scenes before and after the apartment store scene seem to rhyme with each other. They're in conversation with each other. But the apartment store scene has no counterpart, letting our characters experience everything that they have been searching for: comfort, entertainment, luxury, and its juxtaposition emphasizes the injustice and poverty that the Tramp is constantly up against. For a brief second, he can indulge in the fantasy of having instead of going without. What's fascinating about this scene is the way Chaplin uses music. I want you to pay close attention to this moment. Did you catch it? Okay, let's go back. The danger of skating close to the edge could be scored like this. But you realize that Chaplin is using the score not to reflect the external reality that the audience is watching, but the inner feelings that the Tramp is experiencing. He's discovered a way to use the soundtrack to express a subjective state. A very nuanced and subtle moment that is easily missed. This is why Chaplin is able to stand the test of time. Not because he was able to make an audience laugh, but because he was able to make an audience laugh and feel at the same time. The density and complexity in his films mark the work of a true artist. But what was he really trying to do?
Nothing can transcend human personality. You know, a story is all secondary, is purely a background in which this precious thing called personality functions. That's my belief. That's my concept of pictures. The idea of getting somebody that has personality, distinction, somebody that the people can look at and identify themselves with. It's all for the purpose of exploiting that personality. That's all. That's what a story does. In other words, the story is the framework in order to bring out and make luminous the personality.
Chaplin was a master of allowing every moment, gag, chase sequence, or conflict to reveal the Tramp's character, and ultimately revealed Chaplin's own deep humanity. So when you watch this, what do you see? Yes, you're being amused by the sequence itself, but Chaplin's also defining his character simultaneously, showing his intelligence and improvisatory skills. But Charlie's real ability relates back to the struggle of his early childhood, that ultimately leaked through to the stories of his films. His ability to take unpromising situations like hunger, poverty, victimization, loss and confinement and provide a perspective of optimism and resilience. One way that this manifests itself is the way that Chaplin interacts with objects. Unlike Buster Keaton, who used to explore grand-sized objects with incredible wonderment and spectacle, Chaplin focuses on smaller objects to convey character.
When you see the thing in its forms, very simple. It's so difficult. It's so difficult. It took me about 3 weeks to a month of really working on it. It's not just in this. It's in this. It's all in here. Chaplin's head, and you know, the little glances, the side glances.
Everything he does returns to express a sense of character. The Tramp's use of imaginative resourcefulness and ability to transform an object's use gives him tremendous power to bend reality and maintain a romantic optimism. Not everybody can do that. Making comedies out of suffering, coupled with an imagination for resilience, gave the people of the time a relatable and hopeful character. Film as a medium is just over 100 years old, and most of what we know today as film was shaped during the early times of the Tramp. He had a universal and timeless appeal. As an actor, writer, director, and composer, Charlie Chaplin was one of the early filmmakers who really understood that cinema was about emotion.
To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful. Let us use that power. Let us all unite.
Way